We started camping in 2019, and I don't know what has happened since then. I mean, we had a whole pandemic, everything locked down, and I feel not like a totally different person only, but it feels like a completely separate universe, a separate timeline. It feels like we are in a completely different world than before. And it's really hard to remember what it was like before all of this happened. So much has changed, and looking back at all of this footage is such an interesting look into the past. It brings back so many memories, and it makes it so much easier to remember what life was like before. It was March of 2019 when we had planned our first trip to Shawnee Forest. The only intention of this trip at first was just to get away, was to have a good time, was to just relax for a weekend. And so we all drove down there, no planning prior really besides what we were gonna eat and where we were gonna stay. Right away, one of those things went south because our campsite that we had planned for, all the spots were filled up. I think they had like double booked. And so we had to find a new campsite, but it went well. We found a better spot, and I think that set a really good tone for the trip because we had already overcome one challenge. So already we were all feeling good about that, and we got a much better spot. We were only there for 3 days. I think we just went to bed pretty early Friday night, made a campfire, talked a little bit, and then went to bed. But one thing that I remember so distinctly about this trip, my favorite part, I think, of the whole trip, was waking up on Saturday morning after everyone else, because I love to sleep, and waking up and hearing the sounds of my friends talking outside the tent, all having a good time, and smelling the food cooking, and the dew in the morning, and the birds chirping, just that whole sensation of waking up out in nature, just letting your body wake you up naturally. I felt so well rested and so ready to go for the day. And so we ate breakfast, we went to do some hikes, and we had again, no real prior planning. We knew of hikes in the area, but that kind of spontaneity was what was exciting to me about this trip. Even though it was only a couple hours south of our hometown, I had never been there before. It is somewhere that I had never explored, and to me that was exciting. I think to all of us that was a good chance just to kind of let ourselves get lost and connect with one another and just stay in the moment. I think when we were out there hiking and walking through these narrow rock formations and seeing all this stuff we had never seen before, at least for me, that's when it really set in that this would be something that I would like to continue doing. And I was so glad that I documented that first experience because I almost didn't. A friend of mine convinced me to bring the camera along. And now seeing all of these memories is such an interesting glimpse back into the past. And so that was all the trip was. I mean, we went back, we shared a nice night under the campfire, and we did a night hike and went out and we built a campfire out on these rocks and just talked with one another. And so we all went back home and went our separate ways for college. And lo and behold, a couple years later, when a pandemic had shut down almost everything, we didn't really know what to do. We couldn't go out to do anything. And we're all back where we started, it seems. Someone brings up the idea to go on this camping trip again. And that's when I really knew that I had to start documenting this because I had kind of felt that it was gonna be more of a tradition. And luckily everyone agreed. We had some new faces and we all went back. And this second time, it was different, but I mean in a good way. Thinking about it now, I think the reason that we went back to the same spot a couple years later is because the whole world had changed around us. But that one place was still for the most part the same. I mean, pretty far from the rest of society. A little town where only about 200 people live, and then a national forest around it. Going back there helped me to remember what life was like before all the chaos of the pandemic. And I'm sure that was the same for a lot of my friends. It was just like nothing had ever changed, except we were all very different. And so that second year, I think, is when it really sank in that this was gonna become something that we would do regularly. No matter what stage of life that we're in, and no matter what's going on around us, we can take at least 3 days just to go and just to be able to reset When you're out there, not much really matters. Yeah, eventually you'll have to go back to whatever you're dealing with before. But for us, it's somewhere that you can go just to have a good time, no matter what's happening. That second year that we went, what I remember distinctly is that we were all so eager to be there. And we all made a huge effort to continue the tradition from the first year, to continue the spirit of being spontaneous and being present. We all put our phones away for the most part, and we all just, lived with each other in the moment there. And that's something that I appreciate so much.
I promise you this once.
Yeah, I for some reason forgot it was in the fire.
You'll outlive the bastards.
Yeah, that's our thing. Will I?
I mean, it's the people, not the place, right? We go back to the same place every single year, and yet we have a different experience, and we connect in different ways. We find things out that we didn't before. And I'm so glad that all of these people that I'm with, that I go with every year, are willing to just put down everything for a few days and make that commitment and come out and do it. Because we've been doing this for, 3-4 years now. I've known some of these people in my life for over 10 years. And the fact that they continue to try and make the effort to work on these relationships and to make the effort to come back and to sit down and to just spend time together, it means more to me than almost anything. I'm not really sure what the future is gonna hold for this trip. Maybe we'll get bored of the spot in the next year and we won't do it anymore. We'll find a new place, but at least we did it. At least we spent the time together, and at least we had those moments with one another. I'm starting to wonder why I have to take time specifically to disconnect from the rest of the world. I'm starting to wonder if all of these distractions are worth it. When I'm out on this trip with my friends, I feel so at peace, I feel so calm, and I'm starting to think that I would like to live that way a lot more often than just 3 days out of the year. But I think this may be the last time that I document this. I think that for the sake of living in the moment, I might just leave the camera behind next time.